Today, the Western world is building its defenses. Defenses to prevent a war it does not want. Slowly, reluctantly, 12 nations of free Europe, together with Canada and the United States, have turned to the heavy task of mobilizing their industrial might, their manpower, science, and natural resources, because in today's world of Soviet aggression, the only safety is in strength. In plants all over Western Europe, work is pushing ahead to build the weapons that alone can make foreign aggression too costly and therefore impossible. Ships from America, laden with military and economic aid, are pouring their cargoes into European ports to help in the common task of erecting a vast defensive shield. Cooperation among the Atlantic nations grows daily, pledged not only in material and equipment, but in the lives of their citizens as well. Divisions from the United States, both ground and air forces, have been assigned to permanent duty overseas to help the growing armies of Western Europe in holding the line. To millions of young men, North Americans and Europeans alike, the times have brought the grim necessity of learning a second trade. For to go on living and working as they want, they must be equipped to defend, if necessary, their chosen way of life against the forces which today threaten all free nations and all free peoples. In the great international protective force, the nations of the Atlantic community are welding together, there is clearly rising the greatest obstacle yet to the communist aim of world domination. So, "Go home, Eisenhower," became the red slogan from end to end of the continent, and Moscow ordered all Europe's communists into immediate action. The Kremlin's alarm is betrayed by the frantic mouthings of thousands of obedient party members, all shouting the same theme.
Down with the new forces of fascism! Down with the capitalist imperialist warmongers!
Warmongers? Imperialists? Well, let's look at the record. Let's go back. Back to VE Day 1945. The war was over in Europe. In a few more weeks, it would be over everywhere. The Western nations, with unspeakable relief, hastened to disband their victorious forces. Embarking for home, the huge American army faded away, leaving behind only a few regiments for occupation duties overseas. The war was over. In America, as in Europe, the one thought was to get back to blessed peace. Millions of tons of equipment were left to rust and to rot where the war's end had overtaken them. Then the people of Europe went to work, clearing away the debris of violence they're facing as scars. With whatever materials, whatever tools were at hand, they began restoring, piecing together, rebuilding, striving to recreate the pattern of life they had known and loved. But not all Europe had given priority to peace. Russia's gigantic military machine stood almost intact, by far the biggest still left in the world. Its military budget was nearly as high as in wartime. For auxiliary forces, it had the growing armies of its satellite nations, nations once free, which the Kremlin had reduced by pressure from without and treason from within. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania and Albania, East Germany, and finally Czechoslovakia. In Berlin, communists were doing their best to turn Germany's capital into a drawn and quartered city. In Greece, a savage guerrilla war inspired by Moscow was being supported and prolonged by communist help from across the borders. In Italy, the biggest communist party in Western Europe was stirring up revolutionary turmoil. Everywhere, the communist technique was to break the peace, to promote economic chaos, and to delay recovery. For among people bogged down in poverty and misery, communism gains ground most easily. Moscow's loudest propaganda guns were trained from the start upon the Marshall Plan, already showing results in its peaceful campaign to restore Europe to economic health.
The whole world knows that the so-called Marshall Plan is just another American imperialist scheme to build up a new fascist army and incite Europe to an attack on peace-loving Russia. All these
Tutte queste spedizioni pseudo-pacifiche di utensili, di fertilizzanti e di materie prime, che cosa sono se non l'avanguardia di una nuova aggressione fascista? Un nuovo attentato dei fautori di guerra di
Nous les
Washington.
retrouvons, ces serviteurs dévoués de Wall Street, tout à leur mission démoniaque, qui entraînent l'Europe dans une nouvelle lutte pour l'asservissement des peuples.
The truth was, Western Europe was wholly unequipped, even to defend itself. American troops in Europe numbered barely 100,000. France had only 500,000 men under arms. Britain the same. The Netherlands and Italy not 500,000 between them. Fewer still in Belgium, Denmark, Norway, and Greece combined. Against these stood the huge Red Army, 4.5 million strong, with the buffer armies of its satellite nations totaling 2.5 million more. Controlling and disposing these immense forces was a monolithic police state bent on world domination. The same kind of massive and brutal dictatorship the world had seen before, to its cost. The dictatorships cannot be appeased. The free world had learned. Their ultimate aim is war. And when in Korea, red aggression struck openly, the free nations knew they must act together or go down to conquest one by one. Meeting at Brussels, the North Atlantic Treaty Nations agreed that the time had come to build up a joint force for mutual protection. A force strong enough to discourage any aggressor. A community armed to keep the peace. General Eisenhower was called in to organize, unify, and lead the new protective force. Together with General Juin of France as his top field commander, and Field Marshal Lord Montgomery of Britain as his deputy, he appointed an international staff. The French army became the backbone of Western European defenses. Today it is steadily growing in size, strength, and effectiveness, like the rest of the North Atlantic forces. To help equip the fighting men of France, guns, tanks, and vehicles are coming from America through the new Mutual Defense Assistance Program. In addition, great quantities of military equipment are being turned out by French industry. French tanks in service with the North Atlantic forces are among the heaviest in Europe. Backing up the land army is a recreated French Air Force with the latest in jet planes. And France's rebuilt Navy, with its own air arm, is back on the seas again, ready to play its part in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. Beside France stand the other free European countries. Belgium's Navy, like its ground and air groups, is already working with NATO forces. Denmark has pooled its navy and its army with those of its allies. The Netherlands has pledged 3 divisions. Britain has by now close to 1 million men under arms, as well as Western Europe's strongest navy and air force. The United States quota of 6 divisions has already arrived. Canada's fighting men are back in the Europe they helped liberate in 1944. Italy's 3-division army is being expanded. In Norway, every able-bodied man is trained and ready. Behind these defense forces stands all the immense economic power of the whole free world, all the brains and skill of its scientists, men who harness atomic power and today stand ready, if need be, to contribute new and more powerful weapons to its defense. All the free world's overwhelming industrial might, a productive capacity many times greater than that of the combined communist nations. By far the most and richest of the Earth's food-producing soil lies within the free world, and to make it yield, there are millions of peasants and farmers who know that under communism, they would soon lose not only their land, but also their independence. Like all free men everywhere, they look to the day when all their energies can be devoted to the building of a better and a more secure life. But they know that for now there is another task that must share priority, the task of self-defense. And so it is that free men everywhere have reluctantly come to the determination to sacrifice today for the survival of all that they believe in, for tomorrow when the flags of freedom can finally fly over a world not menaced by war, and dedicated to progress and well-being for all, because free men remembered that eternal vigilance is the price of peace.